Let me record. All right, Beth, thank you so much for taking time to jump on this Zoom interview. I got some questions that I know students are going to be fascinated to learn from you as an AI expert. So I just want to kind of hear from you first. Tell me about, you are the CEO of Bast.ai. What is Bast.ai? What is your role as CEO? What are you interested in Bast.ai?
Lots of questions. So Bast.ai, I named the company after the Egyptian cat goddess. We are very much building cats or conversational AI technology. I have decided to really dig deep into software development and software engineering because there's no product out there that is doing what I really want to do, which is show people how AI works and show the explanation in a way that they understand where the data is coming from that is feeding the models.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been experimenting with this sort of human computer interaction. And I notice anytime I show a human being where the data comes from, everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
Their perspectives change. They, are like, why are you using that data? That's not the right data, and there's this sort of it's the end of opacity as I look at it, because we're really at a point where we can show our work. And a lot of people are like, well, it's a black box model, so you can't show what's going on. And I'm like, actually, you can put a black box on top of a black box and show what features it's likely to be using, or you can analyze the input data or the output data to understand the features as well. And I found, my career at IBM just sort of reached a point where we need to dive deep into user research. So
Mm-hmm.
part of what I'm doing at Bast.ai is building out software based on the user research that I get at Maryville.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically why I'm very interested in you guys is it's the right combination of grit and necessity, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also the ability to have like the physical and psychological safety to really truly innovate. And part of what Phil Kamarni and I are doing is very much interested at this intersection between education and healthcare, where, Destin, I want to see if I can make people learn faster augmented with AI.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see if we can get nurses out in 2 years instead of 4.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see if we can build more compassionate people. I want to see if we can reinvent education and reinvigorate education as something that, I draw a lot from my anthropology roots and understanding how we can really effectively curate a culture that is an experimentation mindset where people are ready to dig in with AI. And, when I show what it's made of or what data is used, almost invariably people say, put me in it, put my data in it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly the reaction that I want, because I'm trying to disambiguate all of the hard stuff so
Mm-hmm.
that people can truly put themselves in the AI. And I think that there's a larger unification goal that
Mm-hmm.
I have, where I think that this type of technology can be used to identify existing social bias, identify existing, social situations, very much like a mirror. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
great deep listening tool
Yep. Mm-hmm.
if you are willing to listen. But
Mm-hmm.
that was a lot. But that's
No.
a lot of where I'm going with Bast and why I'm doing Bast now. Holy cow, I was struggling trying to give people, and when you're doing business development, it's very difficult to educate your customer or client. But if you're doing market development, it's even more difficult
Yeah.
to do this sort of education on what AI is. So
Mm-hmm.
in November of 2022, when ChatGPT came out, I was
Mm-hmm.
thrilled beyond measure, because the lift that I usually have with, what is AI? I'm like, go try it yourself. Oh, you
Mm-hmm.
haven't tried it yet? Why not? And
Mm-hmm.
then we can kind of go backwards. So it's a little bit better from my standpoint to be able to have people play with Chat GPT and understand what it is, because it's the first time
Mm-hmm.
humans have really seen behind the curtain of what the social media companies have been doing, what the news
Yeah.
has been doing, so we have a little bit of an insight. And I'm just hoping to, sort of rip the curtains off, because I
Yeah.
really want people to understand what we can do with AI.
Yeah. And I think what's happening right now with, with ChatGPT, especially put
Yep.
on a year or two onto it, right? I think, it's got issues
Mhm.
obviously recently, but give some time put behind those data sets. It can be exciting. Hopefully not another Google losing 100 billion in a day sort of fiascos, but right. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. One follow-up question, what you say is, and tell me where I'm right or wrong on this. So I talk about these, and I know you're passionate about data privacy, owning that data, individuals
Mhm.
having their data, having that data set. How I explain it to students is, I think a lot of people say that, but there's kind of almost a scale. Tell me where I'm right or wrong on this. There's data privacy on one side and convenience on the other side. Beth, I'm going to tell you, Lululemon can have all my data. I don't care. Lululemon, take all my data. Tell me when there's new black yoga pants that come out. Apple, make me feel like a VIP when I open your store. You can have everything available to me. How do you see that kind of balance of convenience versus data privacy? What do you think about that?
So I think I look at it as impact. And
Mm-hmm.
so if, a small group of homogeneous people are making hand over fist money without working very hard,
Mm-hmm.
it's likely they're causing harm.
Yeah.
So your interest in consuming, from like companies like Lululemon, I would want to teach you about B corporations and Athletia, which,
Mm-hmm.
is an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, wanting to give your information to a company in exchange for convenience, fair, but what is that company doing with the money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And where is that money going and who's benefiting? And
Mm-hmm.
so when you're trying to give that, I think we need more information to our consumers. And I do think that consumers have a lot more power than they realize.
Mm-hmm.
But consumption in exchange for information, I think that's fair where it's at right this very second.
Mm-hmm.
But with the advent of, these large statistical algorithms, and with the advent of one company sort of harnessing a good amount of data, and then you're able to apply these like statistical algorithms, you can get very, very certain about things that you did not share. And
Mm-hmm.
being able to correlate the data together and use inference to, infer your sexual predilection, to infer your,
Mm-hmm.
nationalistic sentiments.
Yep.
There's so many things that people don't realize. And I go back to a TED talk that happened in 2013, and a peer of mine, Jennifer Goldblatt, gets on the TED stage and she says, I can tell whether you've done drugs with statistical certainty just
Yeah.
looking at 5 things that you've liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, great, the cat's out of the bag. People understand how their data is being used.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like people really understand how their data is being used.
Yeah.
And it's 10 years later,
Yeah.
10 years.
Yep.
So we have a massive problem in what I would call regulation. And that comes from our lack of understanding. And it's
Yeah.
not you and I, it's our government.
Yeah.
And our government is made up of humans that don't seem to have the level of understanding that they need about how to use this technology or how this technology is being used. And I think that when you're allowing monopolistic behavior from corporations to be,
Mm-hmm.
evident, I think that that's where capitalism, veers very, very quickly to corruption.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot there. I hope I didn't
Yeah.
like veer off, but I think it's not an easy question. You're
Yeah.
not really just trading your convenience for your data. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the exchange.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is the problem, is that people don't see the layers underneath that are being impacted by you giving your data. I also will say this: the minute that you have the experience of working with like the Bast cats with your own data, that experience is so much greater than working with Chat GPT that uses a bunch of people's data without their consent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the experience of understanding how to interact with an AI that you truly trust, that you can build a relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want people to have.
Yeah, I related to. I think history repeats itself, and I ask my students, of these, these are Gen Z, these are millennials for the most part, and I say, do you understand that smoking is bad for you? And they all go, yeah, absolutely. Well, your parents' generation, it wasn't seen that way. During the 60s, 70s, it wasn't regulated. It was kind of free for all.
Yep.
And now we judge them. How could you ever do that back then? I think the exact same
Right.
thing is happening again, that, social media is not regulated right now, which is a great business platform. If you're not regulated, you make a lot of money, to your point, but unethically make money. And that in the future, our children are going to say, how could you let Facebook takes so much of your data? Were you stupid back then, right? Why did you not know about this? So yeah, I'm right there with you.
I had a conversation with my sister this morning, and she and I were talking, and I'm like, dang, I just don't know why I'm having these feelings or these emotions. And I'm like, you know what? I'm deleting my Instagram. So every now and then, like, I go through, and I was telling her, I was like, years from now, people will be like, you had to delete the app when it was causing you harm. How could you not know that?
Yeah. Yep.
and,
Absolutely.
and this is by the way, jaywalking is the one that I use, because
Okay.
jaywalking was it was an invention of the marketing and advertising agencies for the car companies
Hmm.
to make it the pedestrian's fault for getting hit by a car.
How dare you? How
How
dare you
dare
hit my
you?
my new Chevy? I like that.
That's
I like
right.
that.
So, I mean, and then think about like the models that they lined up on Fifth Avenue smoking cigarettes to
Yeah.
advertise.
Yep.
So it's not just the social media corporations, it's the consumers of our data that's being harvested from the social media
Man.
systems to be fed advertisements. So I'm always like, get your Gen Zs, get your people to trace where the money goes and
Hmm.
who it goes to. And again, are they a small, homogeneous group of people?
Yep.
Or is there a distribution that is happening that is unseen?
Yeah. I love it, man. I wish we had more time. I would ask you more about Domino's is a great case study as well. They're a data company,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but I want
Yep.
to go to the next question. You brought up education earlier, that you have a passion for
Mm-hmm.
education. Can you give one, maybe two tactical things, applicable areas where AI can benefit education at the college level? What does college look like in the future using AI for the better of students?
So, first of all, I think that everybody gets to be a participant in their education as opposed to a student or teacher. Same thing with healthcare, where we need to have participants,
Mhm.
not doctors and patients.
Mhm.
And I think that that changes everything, because we have the ability to not only access any content in the world, but we have access to the best teachers in the world. And
Mhm.
it's that access, that democratization of access, that I think it's already going to reinvent education so that it is a far more distributed system, not a commodity.
Mhm.
I do think that my personal opinion is that I think we need to reinvent it and using gaming. And
Mhm.
we're going to have a lot more of these built in behavioral psychology motivations to really gather the heuristics so that we can get to that type of hyper personalization.
Love it.
And so think, Call of Duty for your modern plumber. They
Yep.
get a
Mhm.
plumbing certificate out of it.
Yeah.
And that this is where we're going, especially with trades and things like
Mhm.
nursing and construction, which is again why
Mhm.
I'm at Maryville. But I mean, it's bigger than that, because we have a redefinition of the division of labor.
Mhm.
And the messy middle between roles and skills are the tasks and activities that people do all day.
Mhm.
And it's those tasks and those activities that are going to be automated or changed so drastically with AI that people mistake that for an automation of a role or a skill. It's not.
Mhm.
It's just going to automate some of the tasks. So, the best things that people can do right now is figure out how to augment themselves. What are the tasks that you do all day? Not your role, not your title, not the skills you have, not the certifications, not your
Mhm.
education. What are those tasks? And then what are those tasks that could be better done? And I did this exercise with you guys, like what can be better done with AI?
Mhm.
And that's the work that I want people to think about, because that's really how education is going to change. And the best way to see it, use it yourself.
Yeah. Well, I hear you when you speak on this. I think of like adaptive difficulty. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is, I mean, already available, expensive, but already available.
Yep.
I think of one that I'm a big fan of, like trailheads. Salesforce
Hmm.
Trailhead, I think, does a really
Sure.
good job gamifying that
Yep.
experience. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. Now, how can we now, scaling it right to every
Yep.
area is fascinating. Okay, I want to put you on the spot here, Beth. I want to put you on the spot. Okay, we're going to play the PC version of Marry, Date, Kill. Okay, the
Sure.
PC version. So for you listening, this is the PC version. Marry, Date, Kill. I'm going to give you 3 companies, AI, and they have AI initiatives. So you got to
Hmm.
marry one, you're all in. You're diving all into the
Yep.
pool, all about them. You're dating one, 1 foot in the pool, maybe kind of playing the long game, and you have to kill one. You say, nope. We may have best friends at one of these companies, but we gotta knock one out. Okay, here are your 3 companies: Microsoft, very timely with
Oh.
ChatGPT;
Hmm.
Google, timely with their faux pas with Bard; and a quieter one, but I will tell you to this day is my is my best stock holding is Nvidia. So
Mm.
Nvidia, Google, and Microsoft. Which one are you marrying? Which one are you dating? Which one are you killing?
Actually, I was going to put another one in. I didn't know you were going to give me them, but I think that I would date either Microsoft or actually, if I used yours, I'd probably marry Microsoft. I'd probably date Google, and I'd kill NVIDIA. Not a fan, but
Okay.
at all. And there's the reason for that is more leadership than
Mm,
actual product.
okay.
And you should look at leadership if you want to look for long-term investment. But short-term investment, fine, fair. I date Google, but only if they figured out how to release all the data that they have about the human beings, because I think that'd be a game changer for Google. I
Mm-hmm.
think it would totally change their entire business model. But if anybody could do it, they could really lead the way to
Mm-hmm.
change the business model to not be more like Apple, where they're more protection
Mm-hmm.
on individual human, the heuristics and that data, and build out suites of tools that can analyze and utilize that data to be able to create better teams, more unification, more collaboration, more cooperation. All of those things can be achieved if Google showed the same 360 data points that they have about every human being, but
Mm-hmm.
do it in a way that is actually beneficial to the person and that the person owns their own data.
Okay.
Probably never going to happen, but it would be a good thing for them to do. And then Microsoft, same comment, but I do think that why I like Microsoft better than Google or Nvidia is that Microsoft is a job creator
Yep.
all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and they operate in like 170 countries or something like that. And Nvidia and Google do not create jobs, not
Okay.
not in the different ways that Microsoft
Yeah.
does.
Mm-hmm.
And Microsoft could do better in thinking about what do people do all day with their AI augmented workplace tools.
Okay.
And I think that that's going to change everything. But the company I was going to actually give you is
Mm-hmm.
Sambonova,
Mm.
which is a company that you should look at.
Okay.
They're small, but they're building their own hardware and they're
Mm.
building generative AI. And when you're building your own hardware, you can really start to optimize so that you're not using so much of a carbon footprint to create these models.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. So the pessimist, I guess, in me says, what day does Microsoft buy that company? Do you think a small startup AI company can compete, or do they just have to eventually sell? What do you think?
Um, I think Sambonova is Bell Labs before AT&T.
Okay.
So
Yep.
I think they're doing things that are, rocket ship
Yeah.
crazy. And again, it's that tying back to the hardware and the socket layer and actually getting to, some of the harder things that you have to do in order to create software that runs effectively on hardware systems.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have those.
Okay.
This whole move to the cloud, who does that benefit exactly? So I think people are very not conscious of the fact that it takes hardware, compute, carbon to actually do the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I personally think that all of my peers who are not standing up and saying large language models will never have the level of understanding that is necessary, there doesn't need to be a retraining process. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need to retrain this on more current data.
Mm-hmm.
You have it in English. It generates text in English. Go create one in Japanese or create one for
Yep.
Norwegian.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I
you,
love
you
that.
don't need more than one cheese grater in your kitchen.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Here's a quick one, just a yes or no. You talked about Google kind of opening their data. Does the U.S. have ever passed anything similar to GDPR by 2030?
By 2030? Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Really?
CCPA. Yeah, CCPA is the California
Yep.
protection one.
Mm-hmm.
Canada is gonna. I mean, it's almost impossible to not have something like that. But what I think it's actually going to force is more like a data apocalypse, because
Mm-hmm.
most of the companies are like, wait a second, we have lots of chats with our HR people and our leadership saying things like, don't give her a raise because she's about to go out to get pregnant, or don't give
Mm-hmm.
him a raise because his wife's pregnant, he needs to be bound to this corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of data out there that people are going to go, oh crap, that's a liability. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that you're really going to push it, I'm hoping, for people to start collecting information and data that is necessary, not just because they can store it and
Okay.
they have IT companies that say, we'll back it up to tape and then we'll back it up to storage. Why?
Yeah. Oh, I tell you what, we're going to have our second interview in 2030. We'll see. Whoever wins that, I'm
Okay.
going to say no. GDPR is not going to pass by 2030. So whoever wins gets free dinner. How about that?
That
Well,
well, I think that humans by 2030 are going to understand the value of their own data,
mhm.
which is an artifact of their experience, of a human experience.
Yep.
So I think that people will really start to understand that construct. And that's my prediction, that is really going to change the way that people view this entire information space,
Yep.
which we haven't done a good job prior to
Yep.
now.
Absolutely. Okay, Beth, I want to hit you with the last question. First, thank you so much for your time. I've learned a lot just listening to you. It's fantastic to kind of hear your thoughts and where this is going in the future. My last question. So, majority of people who watch these videos are students. They are
Mhm.
grad students. They are undergraduate students. So, it could be AI related or not. It could just be life lessons. What is one piece of advice you would give a driven college student? Maybe they're graduating in a year, 2 years, et cetera. What life advice would you share with them?
So this comes from my very first mentor, and it's a story a little bit. But I was young, and I had a mentor, which was sort of unheard of at the time. But because of IBM and because of the way that I wanted to be a technical executive, I was put into a path where I got a mentor. My mentor at the time was Joan Mitchell. She invented all of the encryption algorithms for a facsimile machine. She's badass.
Mm-hmm.
And, she was teaching me a lot about data warehousing and a little bit about some information governance. And she said, hey, I really want you to go to this meetup. It wasn't called a meetup at the time. It was just a session where we shared our experience. And I said, no, I'm really not a group person. I don't like to go for groups. And she goes, no, you misunderstand me. I need you to go for what you give. And she goes, you're part of IBM. You're part of IBM's culture. You are getting great power by understanding all of these things that I'm teaching you.
Mm-hmm.
It's your turn to go give back. So that's my advice to students, is to go for what you can give, because you are acquiring great power. And with
Mm-hmm.
great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And when learn to live the Spider-Man way,
Mm-hmm.
you are always in the world, you are always doing things for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Leave it better than you found it, right? I
That's
love that.
right.
Open doors for others. I love that. Well, Beth, thank you again so much for jumping on.
You bet.